Did you ever wonder how such a small country could leave such a big mark on the world? Portugal may be modest in size, but its influence is anything but small. Imagine a place that brought us the world's finest port wine, the global sensation of barbecued chicken, and one of the greatest footballers of all time, Cristiano Ronaldo. But that's just scratching the surface. From the age of discovery to cutting-edge technology, Portugal has shaped history and continues to inspire. Get ready to uncover the hidden gems and remarkable stories of this extraordinary country that will leave you amazed. 1. A timeless nation with global influence. Did you ever imagine that Portugal, this small but remarkable country, holds the title of one of Europe's oldest nation-states? Formed in 1143, Portugal's borders were established by the mid-13th century, making it one of the world's most enduring nations. Beginning in 1415, Portugal set out on an ambitious mission of exploration, spreading its language and culture across 5 continents. They didn't stop there. Portugal extended its influence to the Azores, Madeira, and even established colonies as far as Africa, East Timor, and India. In the 18th century, the Marquis of Pombal led efforts to advance education, creating a network of public primary schools. Yet the 19th century proved challenging, with economic turmoil and political instability hindering further educational progress. By the 20th century, Portugal underwent significant changes. The transition from monarchy to a dictatorial regime under Antonio de Oliveira Salazar meant strict control over education, which left Portugal trailing behind other European nations. However, the tide turned with the Carnation Revolution in 1974, ushering in democracy and much-needed educational reforms. Fast forward to today, and Portugal has transformed into a modern democratic state with a keen focus on education and cultural exchange. Joining the European Economic Community in 1986 and adopting the euro in 1999 marked important milestones in Portugal's journey toward global integration, opening up new opportunities for collaboration with other nations. Portugal's commitment to its Portuguese-speaking counterparts led to the creation of the Community of Portuguese-Speaking Countries, CPLP, fostering stronger cultural and economic ties across the globe. As Portugal looks to the future, its investment in education and efforts to reduce early school leaving are key to building a knowledge-driven economy that promises growth and innovation for years to come. 2. Rebuilding a city and a spirit. In the wake of such unimaginable devastation, Lisbon faced a choice: succumb to despair or rise above the ruins. The decision was clear. The people of Lisbon, determined and resilient, chose to rebuild. Under the leadership of Prime Minister Marquis of Pombal, a plan was set in motion to not only reconstruct the city, but to create a stronger, more resilient Lisbon. The city was redesigned with wide streets, earthquake-resistant buildings, and a focus on safety that would set a new standard for urban planning. But the rebuilding process wasn't just about brick and mortar. It was about healing a community, restoring a sense of normalcy, and rekindling the spirit of a city that had been tested beyond its limits. The citizens of Lisbon showed the world that in the face of overwhelming adversity, the human spirit can endure and thrive. Today, Lisbon stands as a testament to the resilience and ingenuity of its people. The city's iconic landmarks, vibrant culture, and bustling streets are a living tribute to those who refuse to be defeated by disaster. Walking through the streets of this historic city, it's hard to imagine the destruction that once was, but the legacy of the 1755 earthquake is ever present, woven into the fabric of Lisbon's identity. This tragic chapter in Lisbon's history not only reshaped the city, but also left a profound impact on Europe and the world. It spurred advancements in the study of seismology and disaster response, paving the way for modern earthquake preparedness. As we admire the beauty of Lisbon today, let's remember the resilience that turned tragedy into triumph and the enduring lessons that continue to inspire us all. 3. a focus on rehabilitation over retribution. Portugal's approach to justice reflects its deep commitment to human rights and the belief that everyone has the potential to change. The decision to cap the maximum prison sentence at 25 years is rooted in a philosophy that values rehabilitation over retribution. This isn't just a legal technicality, it's a reflection of Portugal's broader social values. In a world where some countries impose life sentences or even the death penalty, Portugal stands out with its more humane approach to justice. But how does this work in practice? Instead of focusing solely on punishment, the Portuguese legal system aims to reform offenders, offering them the tools and opportunities to reintegrate into society as productive citizens. The idea is that after 25 years, a person should have the chance to prove they have changed, learned from their mistakes, and can contribute positively to their community. This approach doesn't mean that Portugal is soft on crime. On the contrary, it represents a firm belief in the possibility of redemption. It's a forward-thinking perspective that aligns with Portugal's history of progressive policies, whether in criminal justice, drug decriminalization, or social welfare. So while the idea of a maximum 25-year sentence might seem surprising at first, it actually makes a lot of sense when you consider Portugal's values. It's not just about serving time, it's about serving justice in a way that benefits both the individual and society as a whole. And that, my friends, is something truly worth reflecting on. 4. A groundbreaking approach to drug policy. Portugal made global headlines as the first country to decriminalize all drugs, including substances like methamphetamines and heroin. But what exactly does decriminalization mean in this context? It's not about making drugs legal or available on every corner. Instead, it means that possessing small amounts of drugs for personal use is no longer treated as a criminal act. Imagine being caught with a small quantity of a controlled substance. Rather than being hauled off to jail, you're now directed toward treatment and support services. In the 1990s, Portugal was facing a devastating drug crisis, with soaring addiction rates and a spike in HIV infections. Traditional methods of harsh penalties and imprisonment weren't making a dent in the problem. The government realized that a new approach was needed, one that focused on health rather than punishment. By decriminalizing drug use, Portugal aimed to reduce the stigma surrounding addiction, encouraging those in need to seek help without fear of legal consequences. Law enforcement could then focus their efforts on dismantling drug trafficking organizations, rather than chasing down individual users. And the results speak for themselves. Portugal now boasts some of the lowest drug usage rates in the European Union. Yes, you read that right. This bold experiment in drug policy has been a remarkable success. It's important to understand that this isn't about ignoring the dangers of drug use. It's about addressing it as a public health challenge instead of a criminal one. So, does this mean Portugal is a free-for-all when it comes to drugs? Not at all. Drug trafficking is still a serious crime, and authorities remain vigilant in their fight against illegal drug networks. Portugal's approach is all about striking the right balance between compassion and accountability, proving that sometimes the most effective solutions are also the most humane. 5. Portugal, a forerunner in abolishing slavery. When discussing the history of slavery, Portugal isn't typically the first nation that comes to mind. However, Portugal was deeply entrenched in the transatlantic slave trade, much like Britain and other European powers of that era. Yet, in 1819, Portugal took an extraordinary step. They abolished slavery, a full 14 years before Britain followed suit. Quite remarkable, wouldn't you agree? But what prompted Portugal to take such a significant step so early on? Several factors were at play. There was increasing pressure from other European countries to end the slave trade, and as a prominent global power, Portugal was keen on maintaining its reputation and avoiding potential conflicts. Additionally, there was a growing movement within Portugal itself, where voices advocating for the abolition of slavery, driven by ethical and moral reasons, became louder. Portugal didn't just limit its actions to abolishing slavery within its own borders. They went further by actively working to eradicate the slave trade in their colonies. This meant taking a strong stance against illegal slave ships and enforcing anti-slavery laws across the territories under Portuguese control. It was a courageous move that set Portugal apart from other colonial powers of the time. Six, Portugal and Spain once divided up the world. You've probably heard the legend that Portugal conquered half the globe, but here's the real story. Although Portugal and Spain didn't conquer half the world, they did achieve something quite remarkable. In 1494, they signed an important agreement called the Treaty of Tordesillas. This treaty, endorsed by the Vatican, was a major milestone. It essentially drew an imaginary line across the globe, allocating navigational and colonial rights between these two maritime superpowers. Imagine this. Diplomats gathered around a table, debating the precise location of this line. They eventually agreed on a boundary roughly along the 25 degrees W meridian. That's approximately midway between Cape Verde and Cuba. So, what was the significance of this line? It served as a boundary, dividing Portugal's sphere of influence from Spain's. Portugal controlled one side and Spain the other. Pretty straightforward, right? While Portugal and Spain were busy congratulating themselves on this agreement, other nations weren't exactly applauding. Countries like England and the Netherlands, particularly Protestant ones, essentially ignored the treaty, saying, "We'll chart our own course." Indeed, while Portugal and Spain were dividing the world on paper, other rising naval powers were out there conducting their own explorations and establishing colonies. So, although the Treaty of Tordesillas was a landmark moment for Portugal and Spain, it didn't hold much weight for the rest of the world. 7. Europe's longest dictatorship. Portugal holds a distinctive place in European history for enduring the continent's longest dictatorship, which lasted an astonishing 48 years, from 1926 to 1974. This era was heavily influenced by Antonio de Oliveira Salazar, a leader whose impact shaped the nation for nearly half a century. Salazar's regime was characterized by strong nationalistic conservatism, deeply rooted in Catholic values. During his rule, Portugal saw the establishment of the Estado Novo, or the new state. The dictatorship unfolded in three main phases. It began with the military dictatorship, known as ditadura militar, from 1926 to 1928, a time when the military held firm control over the government. Next came the national dictatorship, or ditadura nacional, which lasted from 1928 to 1933, during which Salazar solidified his power and set the stage for his vision of Portugal's future. The final and most enduring phase was the Estado Novo, from 1933 to 1974. This period saw Portugal under Salazar's tight control, with severe censorship and restricted political freedoms. However, even the longest reigns must eventually come to a close. In Portugal's case, the end came with the Carnation Revolution on April 25, 1974. This peaceful revolution, symbolized by the widespread distribution of carnations to civilians and soldiers, brought the dictatorship to an end. Today, every April 25th, Portugal celebrates Freedom Day, or Dia da Liberdade, honoring the nation's shift to democracy. This day serves as a powerful reminder of the Portuguese people's resilience and their long journey toward freedom and democratic governance. 8. Portugal introduced tea to England. Our tale takes us back to 1662, when Catherine of Braganza, a Portuguese princess, wed Charles II of England. The English were about to receive more than just a royal bride. They were about to be introduced to a delightful new custom. Catherine brought with her a cherished drink from Portugal, tea. While tea wasn't entirely unknown in England, it was Catherine's deep affection for this aromatic brew that truly ignited a cultural shift. In Portugal, tea was already a beloved staple, and Catherine wasted no time in sharing this tradition with the English court. Before long, tea became the fashionable beverage of choice, setting the stage for a social revolution. Picture the scene. Elegantly dressed ladies, gathered in lavish drawing rooms, sipping tea and engaging in lively conversation about the day's events. Catherine's influence was clear. Tea quickly evolved from a simple drink to a symbol of refinement and high society. But Catherine's love for tea didn't just charm the upper classes. Her passion for the brew soon trickled down to the general public, sparking widespread interest. Tea houses began to emerge all over England, offering everyone a chance to experience this new and sophisticated pleasure. 9. A remarkable number of Portuguese live abroad. Did you know that Portugal has the highest emigration rate in the European Union? More than 2 million Portuguese citizens, accounting for about 20% of the nation's population, have chosen to settle in foreign lands. That's an impressive figure, isn't it? The primary reason behind this widespread emigration is the search for better prospects. Between 2011 and 2014 alone, nearly 500,000 Portuguese individuals packed their bags and left Portugal, driven by the hope of finding brighter opportunities elsewhere. Luxembourg, for instance, has emerged as a significant hub for the Portuguese community. By 2021, almost 100,000 Portuguese were living in this small but wealthy nation, making up an astonishing 14.5% of Luxembourg's population. Currently, over 2 million Portuguese reside outside their homeland. But here's something even more striking. When you add in the descendants of these emigrants, the total number of people with Portuguese heritage abroad exceeds 5 million. That's around 40% of Portugal's current population. This phenomenon underscores the Portuguese people's adaptability and determination. Even though they've ventured far from home, they've left a lasting imprint on cultures around the globe, contributing richly to the international community. 10. Portugal's world-famous tiles. Portuguese tiles, or azulejos, are far more than just decorative ceramics. They're a vital piece of Portugal's cultural and historical tapestry. Originating in the 13th century, these beautiful tiles were initially brought over by the Arabs during their occupation. However, it was during the reign of King D. Manuel I that azulejos truly began to flourish. According to legend, King D. Manuel I was so enchanted by the vibrant tiles he saw in Seville that he decided to bring them back to Portugal to adorn his palace. This decision sparked a national passion for azulejos that spread like wildfire. Today, these intricate tiles are a defining feature of almost every building in Portugal, each one narrating its own story. You might be curious about the iconic blue and white color scheme that dominates Portuguese tiles. This trend took hold during the Age of Discoveries, a time when these colors were seen as symbols of wealth and influence. Drawing inspiration from Oriental porcelain and Dutch designs, these colors became emblematic of Portugal's architectural style and its powerful maritime heritage. The creation of azulejos is a meticulous craft. Each tile is carefully shaped, intricately painted, then glazed and fired to perfection. This attention to detail transforms every tile into a miniature masterpiece. To celebrate and preserve this rich artistic tradition, Portugal is home to the National Tile Museum in Lisbon, where the history and artistry of azulejos are on full display. Initially found only inside the homes of the wealthy and within religious buildings, azulejos eventually made their way onto the exteriors of buildings, transforming the look of cities across Portugal. Whether they grace the facade of a modest home or a grand cathedral, these tiles are a testament to the creativity and skill of their makers. So next time you wander through the streets of Portugal, take a moment to appreciate the tiles around you. Each one has a unique story to tell, a piece of history beautifully captured in ceramic. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more fascinating content. See you in the next one.